I came to see if the CIA might be the right career path for you.
I'm sorry, what? The CIA? You came here to hire me?
We'll be coming back over altitude.
I am a former Los Angeles police narcotics detective, and I work South Central Los Angeles, and I will tell you, Director Deutsch, emphatically and
Can
without
you speak
equivocation.
further into the mic, sir? These mics don't seem to be...
I will tell you, Director Deutsch, as a former Los Angeles police narcotics detective, that the agency has dealt drugs throughout this country for a long time.
At this time, then, I would call Maxine Waters from California's 35th District. And we are pleased to have you before us today, Maxine, to talk about the report that is being provided to us by Mr. Hitz.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I'm here today to testify about the failure of the Central Intelligence Agency to conduct a serious and thorough investigation into the allegations of CIA involvement in cocaine trafficking to fund its Contra-war activities. Unfortunately, my fear that the CIA would be unable to investigate itself has been confirmed with this report. The Inspector General's report lacks credibility. It is fraught with contradictions and illogical conclusions.
No drug seems to be spreading faster on the streets of Los Angeles than rock cocaine. Some say it has become an epidemic because what was once the rich person's drug is now within reach of the middle class and perhaps even the poor. Tonight, investigative reporter Jim Forbes has the first part of his special report on the cocaine epidemic.
If his story is true, a government agency waging an illegal war, dealing drugs, getting criminals absolved of murder, well then you of all people should know that there's nothing they won't do to kill that story.
Whoever, you there this morning?
Yeah, I am.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
How are you?
Very tired. Early out here.
I apologize. You're really nice to do this. We've had so many calls about this, is why we asked you to do it.
Well, I'm happy to talk about it.
I actually heard you on a radio station when I was in Detroit a couple weeks ago for about an hour talking about this. This is what it's all about. It's the San Jose Mercury News, and here's a front page piece in August the 18th, and it's the first of a three-part series. Tell us, you know, in a couple of minutes, what this is about.
It's about a drug ring that operated in San Francisco and Los Angeles in the mid-'80s, and it was connected to a Nicaraguan anti-communist army called the FDN, which was one of the biggest groups that we know as the Contras, and it was selling cocaine in Los Angeles for the most part, but in other areas of the country as well, to the gangs, to the Crips and Bloods down in South Central Los Angeles. And they were taking the money and using some of it, I don't know how much, and we haven't figured that out yet, to buy weapons for the Contras.
America is the land of the free, you know. There's people fighting to make sure of that right this minute. You don't agree?
White folks are fighting to keep what they gotta get even more, and black folks are fighting to survive. And America don't give a fuck whether we make it or not.
Thank you so much for joining us today. You know, yesterday we were in San Diego, California, talking with one of the country's most notorious drug dealers, Mr. Ricky Ross, better known as Freeway Rick. Take a look at this tape.
I think I'm an expert on cocaine. There's not many people that has dealt with as much cocaine as I have. I think I'm an expert. I saw people strung out from snorting cocaine, where they snort cocaine all day long. I saw them take powder and put it in cigarettes and smoke it, just like a rock smoker will.
If the CIA director's premature conclusion was meant to direct the final outcome, he has succeeded. This report's sweeping denial of the CIA's knowledge of drug trafficking related to the Contras defies the evidence and the logic that the CIA should have known.
And can you give us a little bit of this scenario on how these...
I'm not looking at a television right now, but is that the pipeline chart?
It is.
Yeah. Those were the various smuggling routes that the ring used starting in the late 70s up to the early 90s to get the cocaine into the country and to get the money, some of the money back out of the country. And it depending on the year and depending on the how intense the police scrutiny was, which wasn't very for the most part. Those are the different routes they used. They used freighters. They used stolen cars. They would just fly the stuff in suitcases early on when you didn't bring very much.
I never thought about working for the government.
Really? Do you mind if I ask why?
Ricky Ross is right now facing a life sentence, but he says he deserves to be a free man. Why? Because he says the CIA used him as a pawn to sell drugs to help fund the secret war in Nicaragua.
He was a hardcore drug user for 10 years, and he's talking about cocaine, rock cocaine. These small nuggets, each packing a chemical high so powerful, users say that when smoked, it's a drug unlike any other.
It's like having an orgasm is what it's like.
Is she okay? No. She on rock now.
Thomas Peach Ray and his top secret squadron of National Guard bombers were shot down during a CIA bombing mission in the Bay of Pigs debacle. For 37 years, the CIA denied that Mr. Ray and his squadron even existed, much less were shot down by Cuban troops in 1961. Only this month, faced with a document obtained by a Freedom of Information Act request by the National Security Archives, did the CIA finally admit the truth 37 years later. My deep concern about the allegations raised in the Dark Alliance series that my government could have in any way been involved in or had knowledge of drug trafficking has caused me to spend much of my own time and resources to find out more about these allegations. After reading the Dark Alliance series, I interviewed Gary Webb, the writer of the series. And by the way, Mr. Chairman and members, Mr. Gary Webb is here today. He's sitting right here in this seat, and I invited him to come. He's put a lot of time and work into this investigation, and I have been working with him since the first day that I read it, and I think that he should be privy to all information as he continues his work in this area.
I haven't read the series. It looks fantastic, but what about the CIA involvement in all of this? Is that...
Well, that part of the story deals with the FDN, that guerrilla army that I mentioned earlier.
Right.
That was, as the Iran-Contra hearings documented pretty well, that was a creation of the CIA.
Right.
And we tracked the cocaine dealers who were running this operation all the way up the ladder to the couple of CIA agents that were actually running the FDN, Enrique Bermudez and Adolfo Calero. And let me tell you as a bit of background. Most of this information, or much of the information, came out at a trial in San Diego in March. One of the cocaine brokers, a guy named Danilo Blandone, who was the head of the Southern California operation, has been working for the U.S. government for the last couple of years, and he was the star witness in a cocaine trafficking trial for the DEA in San Diego, and a lot of this stuff came out under cross-examination when he was up on the witness stand because the defense was curious, to say the least, about his relationship with the Contras and the Crips, and unfortunately they couldn't really get into a lot of it because before the trial the United States filed a motion asking that nobody be allowed to ask Mr. Blandone about his relationship with the CIA, and it was one of the most curious documents I'd ever seen. It said, if true, this matter would be classified, and if false, it shouldn't be allowed at the trial. So,
did you get
really had a chance to quiz him in great detail about his relationship there.
Did you get any help at all out of the CIA?
During the investigation, absolutely not. They wouldn't even return my phone calls. I mean, I filed a Freedom of Information Act request for information on Blandone and his boss, Norun Meneses, and I was told that they can't tell me anything because it's a matter of national security.
That's what makes America great.
See, what you don't realize, Reed, is there's two Americas, and we don't live in the same one. But you know what's interesting about that? That despite that, somehow the two of us still ended up doing dirt. I mean, I know why I'm doing it. What I don't understand is why you.
If it was good for them to sell drugs, then it should have been good for me to sell drugs. The money from the drugs went to buy guns for the Contras.
A high so compelling that young women have been known to prostitute themselves for just $3, just to get money to buy a rock.
Some of them don't even turn it for that. They just turn it for the rock.
And a 15-minute high. A high so diluting that it eats away at the mind.
We're going to take a call in a moment, but in your stories also you say that the Crips and the Bloods, the gangs in L.A. get involved in this. How?
That's the back end of the deal. That's who was buying the cocaine, and they were buying cocaine and they were buying weapons from these fellows.
How much? Can you give us some sense of how big this thing is?
Well, you know, one of the guys that talked to me was the guy who was buying it, a fellow named Freeway Rick Ross. He was the biggest crack wholesaler in Los Angeles during the 1980s. And he says, well, he and Danilo Blandone have both said that, you know, at their peak they were doing 100 kilos a week. And that's just with one dealer. You know, I don't know how much Blandone was selling to other people, but with Rick Ross, he was selling at least 100 kilos a week by 1984, 1985.
Let's take a call, and Jack Nelson's here at the desk with us, and we'll ask both of you gentlemen to get involved. Wilmington, Delaware, go ahead, please.
Good morning. I'm a little nervous because this is my first time.
That's all right.
Join the club.
But if you remember, during the CIA Contra hearings, when Ollie North and President Reagan and all those other people were having this war in Nicaragua, this information came out then, but it was just, you know, put under the rug. But it was a well-known fact at the time that the CIA was using gangs in California and various parts of the country, black groups, and they would bring drugs into the United States, and they are part of the reason why the drug situation is the way it is today, because they infiltrated the country with all these drugs so that they could get the money, because Congress would not appropriate money for us to carry on that war in Nicaragua. So they had to get money from someplace to finance the war.
But what about right now, though? What do you think the situation is? I ask all of you, what's the status of this kind of drug running today? Gary
Well,
Webb?
I don't know what the situation is now, but the CIA is one of the reasons why the situation is what it is today.
All right, thanks.
She said, now I don't have to choose. I found the best of both worlds. Their system. My way.
God, frankly, you think you're protected? They give a shit about you? They'll never let you out.
Yeah, well, that's my problem. We're not here to talk about me.
Cocaine was like a situation like party, you know, like have fun, you know, like it's like just being cool, you know. It wasn't nothing negative about it, you know. It was never, we didn't ever see a crack mother. It wasn't no crack mothers. It wasn't nobody strung out on cocaine. It was like the people that was buying, you know, made $500, $600 a week, drove brand new cars, had nice looking women, wore nice clothes, you know what I'm saying?
A high so demanding that it sold on streets throughout South Central Los Angeles, where it's eroding the fabric of a proud and building community.
There is no way to build up any community with this kind of a disease in that community. This is worse than AIDS, it's worse than herpes, it's worse than all other kinds of diseases, because it's simply tearing, it's eating away, it's a cancer of the mind.
See, these people are copping right now. These people are copping dope.
Let me bring in the Mena, Arkansas story that the Wall Street Journal spent a lot of time on.
Well, we wrote about that the other day.
How does that fit in with all this? I mean,
Mena was part of a parallel operation that was going on the East Coast, which is why if people think they've heard about this before, it's because they heard about the East Coast pipeline when it was uncovered back in '85 and '86.
But I want to make the connection with the current president. He was supposedly involved as a governor?
Well, he was governor while this was going on. Whether or not he knew about it is something I don't think has been proven yet.
Let me ask Jack Nelson about this. Do you pay attention to that Mena, Arkansas story?
Well, we've written what was there, but I mean, there's no indication that Clinton as governor had anything to do with it. I mean, it's been written about with all sorts of speculation by a lot of right-wing publications, but I've never seen anything that indicated any complicity on the part of the...
This was the aircraft known as the Fat Lady, a C-123 military cargo plane. It would be manned by SEAL and 2 other Louisiana men, co-pilot Emil Camp, who was later killed in a plane crash in Arkansas, and engineer Peter Everson. When SEAL told his DEA contacts about the Nicaraguan stopover and about the apparent involvement in the drug deal by soldiers and officials of the Sandinista government, the CIA jumped into the case, rigging the cargo plane with a camera.
The camera was mounted here on this bulkhead, by the CIA. They had a remote control camera enclosed in an electronics box with a small eye on it so that it looked like an electronic gizmo inside the airplane.
The remote control camera produced a remarkable set of photographs. The man wearing the fatigue hat is a Nicaraguan soldier.
Got the airplane completely ready to go, and about 5 minutes before departure time, the Army brought in the truckloads, the duffel bags full of cocaine, and they were loaded on board the aircraft by the Cuban and Sandinista soldiers.
The man facing the camera is Frederico Vaughn, an aide to the Interior Minister in Nicaragua's Sandinista government. The photographs of Vaughn sent out shockwaves all the way to the White House.
The Sandinistas have even involved themselves in the international drug trade. I know every American parent concerned about the drug problem will be outraged to learn that top Nicaraguan government officials are deeply involved in drug trafficking. This picture, secretly taken at a military airfield outside Managua, shows Federico Vaughn, a top aide to one of the 9 commandantes who rule Nicaragua, loading an aircraft with illegal narcotics bound for the United States. No, there seems to be no crime to which the Sandinistas will not stoop. This is an outlaw regime.
President Reagan, in seeking financial aid for Nicaraguan Contras, used the pictures snapped by Barry Seal as a basis of linking the Sandinista government to international drug trafficking. With Frederico Vaughn at the Nicaraguan airstrip was a top Colombian drug lord. The man in the striped shirt is Pablo Escobar Gaviria, who with the Ochoa family is believed to be a leader of the world's cocaine cartel. As cameras snapped pictures, the 1,500 pounds of cocaine was loaded onto the plane and Seal headed north, supposedly destined for a secret landing strip in Louisiana.
Virginia Beach, Virginia, go ahead, please.
Yes. Concerning the Arkansas involvement in the drug thing, ever since 1986, Bill Clinton as governor did not ride herd on this thing, but all the drugs came through Mena, Arkansas. Everybody knows that and reads it in the papers. Barry Seal was doing it. Barry Seal was killed. Clinton didn't really have anything to do with it except he knew about it, gave auspice to it, rode herd on it, and his government bond program received 10% of the profits, plus all the money was able to be laundered through Arkansas banks.
All right, thanks. Mr. Webb.
That's a lot of the allegations around Mena, and a lot of what you said is true. That Barry Seal was, I mean, he was one of the biggest drug dealers in the country at the time, and that's where he was based out of.
He used to smuggle drugs. Then he got caught, and he became one of the government's most valuable informants in the war against cocaine. But last night in Louisiana, Barry Seal's enemies caught up with him and killed him. Tonight, 3 men are in custody. NBC's Brian Ross reports that Seal was about to testify for the government once again.
Authorities believe last night's machine gun killing of top drug informant Barry Seal was ordered by drug bosses in Medellin, Colombia, who sent 5 men to Baton Rouge to kill Seal. Seal's son, Barry Jr., one of 5 children, was restrained by police, who said the gunman had waited in ambush for Seal at a Salvation Army shelter, where Seal had been sentenced by a federal judge on a drug charge to do community service. Seal was a tough guy TWA pilot who got caught smuggling cocaine and became one of the most important and daring undercover operatives, infiltrating the top Colombian drug operations. In a recent interview, Seal said he knew he was risking his life.
The old saying, if you can't stand the heat, don't work in the kitchen. I can take the pressure.
It was Seal who posed as a smuggler and flew into Nicaragua and took these pictures showing Colombian drug dealers and Sandinista officials loading cocaine on his plane. Seal busted up the Colombian connection in the Caribbean country of Turks and Caicos, setting up a payoff meeting on videotape that led to the arrest and conviction of the country's prime minister. And Seal was scheduled to be the key witness against this man, Jorge Ochoa, the top Colombian drug boss, now in jail in Spain, about to be extradited to the United States. Authorities say the Ochoa drug organization was responsible for the bombing of the U.S. Embassy in Bogota last year, the assassination of Colombia's Attorney General, and now the murder in Louisiana
of the man who was perhaps the most important undercover drug informant ever. Brian Ross, NBC News.
Ricky Ross was selling cocaine to the point of making $3 to $4 million a day. He sold so much cocaine, it hurt his fingers to count the money. Not only in Los Angeles, but in Cincinnati, in St. Louis, all the way across America. So some can say, and this is the reason why people are so angry at you in your article, is that Ricky Ross, the dope dealer, was supplied by the CIA because Blandón was an operative for the CIA, correct?
Blandón and Meneses were working for an army that was a wholly owned subsidiary of the CIA. They were meeting with CIA agents. Blandón, and this came out in court. I mean, Danilo Blandón is now a government witness. He works for the Drug Enforcement Administration. And we've paid him, I don't know, $166,000 over the last 18 months because he's such a good informant. So they put him on the witness stand in Ricky Ross's case. And he testified that in 1981, he went to Honduras. He met with the commander, the military commander of the CIA's army, and he was instructed to go raise money in California for this Contra army. And he was told that the ends justified the means.
And those ends being sell cocaine if you have to.
Well, look, he was in the room with the Nicaraguan representative of the Cali cartel, Mr. Meneses, and he was in the room with a government marketing expert named Danilo Blandón. Now, if they weren't talking about selling cocaine, I don't know what they were talking about.
But you see, the thing is, I'm not afraid of dying anymore. Not even so much afraid of prison. What I will not be is a slave to anyone, even you.
Mike has right there. Mike, you have a document that I saw on a recent show, but this document is a transcript of Oliver North's diary, correct?
I can go on for the next 2 hours.
Oh, wait,
Incidents with the CIA, and I put thousands of people away in jail, Mr. Goodman.
Mike, we're not arguing that. We're
a lot less than you see. This is Oliver North's
Mike,
diary.
that's great. That came out in the 1980s when they had 3 congressional committees, a special counsel, Lawrence
The only
Wall,
trouble with that was this was
it.
not given to Kerry. This was held back from Kerry.
And Walsh never investigated this.
And nobody's ever denied that people on the fringe of the country movement were involved in drug dealing. This man has claimed that this was a CIA plot. More so now he's backed away from his claim. He tells the Washington Post incredibly, I didn't say CIA was doing this.
You know, one of the things
a
man doesn't have the cowardice of his own
people have
convictions.
to understand about a CIA. People have to understand about a CIA whose chief of counterintelligence for 8 years sold America's top secrets as if it was a Bayonne, New Jersey garage sale, and nobody stopped him. The FBI had to fight CIA to arrest him, not CIA. So when you talk about, this is an agency that was experimenting with mind control drugs, putting LSD in the food of patients.
Don't forget the Abraham Lincoln assassination.
This is all, well, I mean, I'm talking about specific. Now let's talk about reality.
Wait, Mike,
if I could just say something. One of the things I've always noticed, and I hope I can do it without interruption, is that as soon as facts are being made, you'll notice as soon as he pulled out that document, interruption. Now let me tell you what we're asking for. Is a Congressional Records Act. In other words, let's take all of the records, classified and otherwise, put them out before the people, and let's see who knew what and when they knew it. Here's the accusation. The accusation isn't that agents were on the street corner selling drugs. The accusation is that drugs are being sold by the Contras and that the CIA knew about it and didn't do anything. That's the accusation. So what we need is a Records Act so that you and I and all of us. Now, if he says he knows what the CIA knows, he's saying more than the CIA is saying.
Director Deutsch, I will refer you to 3 specific agency operations known as Amadeus, Pegasus, and Watchtower. I have Watchtower documents heavily redacted by the agency. I was personally exposed to CIA operations and recruited by CIA personnel who attempted to recruit me in the late 70s to become involved in protecting agency drug operations in this country. I have been trying to get this out for 18 years, and I have the evidence. My question for you is very specific, sir. If in the course of the IG's investigation, Fred Hitz's work, you come across evidence of severely criminal activity, and it's classified, will you use that classification to hide the criminal activity, or will you tell the American people the truth?
If you have information about CIA illegal activity
in drugs, you should immediately bring that information to wherever you want. Let me suggest 3 places. The Los Angeles Police Department.
Please. I'm sorry, others want to hear this answer. I am sorry, others want to hear this answer.
It is your choice, the Los Angeles Police Department, the Inspector General, or office of one of your Congress persons from this.
You know, the government never cared about me, so I helped them.
This kind of work's not for everyone.